who am I? I'm Craig Geil. I was here for the very first LexTalk, so I'm an old timer with it. I moved to Lexington a couple of years ago with my wife. I do hang out on the Bluegrass Developers Guild Slack channel, and I do help run a book and film club through meetup.com. If anybody is interested in joining a book club or a film club, there's about 4 or 5 of us that meet every other Tuesday. It's fun. I also do the Command Wine meetup also, which is once a month. And it's just, tech people hanging out. It's at a wine bar, so up by Gray Line. Let's see. Right now I work remote for state of Oklahoma education department. I'm a full stack developer. That's my email right there. Let me ask, how many people have ridden a horse at all? Awesome. Does anybody know anyone that owns a horse? Anybody own a horse? Okay, I own a horse. Actually, my wife owns the horse, not me. Okay. All right, my personal history with horses. This is my wife on her 3 of her horses. That's Carlo. He comes from a Amish family, and this is her older horse. She rides carriages with him, and this is one of her newer horses. Her name is Frankie. She's got blue eyes, named her after Frank Sinatra. So let's see. The equine industry, it's pretty big, obviously, because we live in Kentucky. $6.5 billion apparently, and about 60,000 jobs in Kentucky alone. Majority of that is obviously the horse racing industry. With Keeneland starting up, I think this Friday, so there'll be full drunk people on bourbon. Equine sports is normally split into racing and show. My wife does a lot of dressage. It's an Olympic sport, and there's jumping, eventing. They're all Olympic events. So let's see. There's really 2 innovation spaces for equine tech, biometrics, which is kind of like wearable sensors, and there's AI. We'll get into that. 3 areas is performance, health, and training, where they do a lot of this. And we'll hit the first one. The first one is this: horseshoes have normally there's a horseshoe, which is just a flat piece of metal that's nailed on the bottom. They put that on there because riding a horse over and over with weight, it kind of scuffs up their hooves. So invented many years ago, but it's kind of an imperfect science, especially for racehorses and injured horses, because it's a flat piece of metal. But you can do 3D printing, and that way it fits and molds to a horse's hoof better, and there's a lot of recovery time, and it's a lot easier on their legs, and it extends the life of normally horse racing. And that they find different types of materials other than steel that help cushion it, and it does help out in performance. Let's see. We own one of these. I have not got it to work yet, though. It's like a little servo motor in here, and if you put your iPhone on here, it runs on an app, and you can video yourself show jumping or doing dressage or whatever, and then there's programs with these apps that you could there's a lot of AI type stuff. They can give you like feedback and say, okay, you're not holding the reins right, you're jumping too early or whatever. And they have a lot of the top horse trainers have helped train these AI models. They got little cool apps. On health, they have big thing in when you have a lot of horses. We have 4 horses. Is if one gets sick, they all get sick. So because they're all in stalls, you try your best to keep it clean, but sometimes they go out to a horse show and they bring something back, and then you're screwed. And it's expensive to test them, to bring a vet in and test them and do swabs and do lab work. Well, some of these companies are coming up with you just buy these little things, and you stick them in there, and it works on an app, and then you just swab it in your horse's nose, and then you just, I don't know, there's chemical reactions or whatever going on, and you can read off the test results on your phone, and it saves you a vet bill. And you can find out, you can kind of keep tabs, make sure that the horses are going to stay healthy. And if one gets sick, you know, move them to another barn or something, or quarantine them. So that's kind of a nice thing. Then there's these these are more like wearables. I kind of stick it on the back of a horse's mane here, and it can pick up a lot of information on the horse's health. They can, you know, obviously it says they can run for 5 days. There's all kinds of sensors, excuse me, inertial management units and GPS, excuse me. It can do like, one of the things that when you have a horse is if they lay down a lot, that usually means there's something wrong with them. Either they're sick or they're hurting or something. And this will actually pick up, it's like your horse has not moved hardly at all today. And it's, you can get an alert on that. It's actually pretty cool. And there's geofencing. You normally you fence off areas. And one of the things is that, especially right now when there's spring grass coming up, you don't want your horse out on that spring grass very long, because what it does, it gives them kind of a form of diabetes, and it can affect their hooves and soften their hooves, and they can get in all kinds of problems. So you normally fence it off, but horses see that green grass, or you got a bunch of stallions, you see a bunch of mares, they're going to push that fence down, and then, you know, you get an alert saying, oh, they pushed the fence down. Get out there and grab them. That's one of the reasons, if you'll see a lot of thoroughbred farms out here, they got double fences around everything. That's one of the reasons they want to keep the mares away from the stallions, so they put 2 fences up, because the stallions will say, I could jump that. So kind of some cool app pictures that they have. Here's obviously vets have a big stake in all this. They can put like sensors on the legs and back and on the head, and then they make them walk around, and they can detect lameness in a horse, or early onset lameness, which, you know, sometimes the horse gets hurt, but they're going to power through it, and they're not going to let you know. And these apps and things like that will help a vet to be able to see, you know, 'cause the old vets is like, you just look at it, you know, I can see the lameness. My wife is like that. She's uncanny. Like, she says, oh yeah, your horse's back stifle's got a problem. What? But this is all, you know, computerized, and it's pretty cool. This is a kind of the similar thing, but it's kind of a wraparound unit on a horse. You know, because they have experienced some racetrack injuries recently, high-profile ones. And in 2008, one of the Kentucky Derby horses had to be put down at the racetrack because it broke her legs. And it's a concern, obviously, with the whole industry, like NFL, with you know, worrying about, you know, these players getting concussions and all that. So. This is, and as good as veterinarians are, and they do medical checks before these horses run, especially in these big events, they still can't catch that these horses have got problems. So Stride Safe, I know they work with, you know, the racetrack in Louisville, and they test these out before pre-race and during the race, and it's a big data thing where they basically, you know, pull in a lot of information and data, and if there is an injury, then they can examine it, and then they can look at the data and say, okay, sensor 529 showed a problem, and then they can detect this ahead of time, and it actually is starting to work. So that's a really nice thing. Here's training, more wearables. It's a kind of a saddle pad, and then you sit on it, and what it does is it helps with riders' balance, because a lot of the Olympic sports, there's a lot of, like, you have to kind of stay straight, and you can't lean in, or you get all messed up, so you don't get good scores. So this helps give you feedback on that, and also saddle fit, which is a big thing. You know, saddle too tight or too loose, because if it's too loose, you're going to fall off. And it helps with horse racing, because they can do, it'll measure heart rate and recovery time, and which also indicate injuries possible. There's some more wearables. It's reins. A lot of the Olympic sports, when they hold the reins, really your hand is supposed to be steady. And I know in some of I watch the Olympics horses with my wife, and she's like, "Look at that! Their hands are all over the place." Then you learn that when you're 12 years old, to hold your hand straight. But this gives you feedback in holding your hand straight, and it angles and all that, and it's like kind of like a watch thing. Then there's also virtual reality, which is pretty neat, because they do a lot of this in racing, actually, for jockeys. That way they don't have to actually go to the course, and they can actually see the course for virtual reality and get used to the course, and they can change the climate. You know, I want to see what it looks like when it's raining. And in show jumping, one of the big things is when you're approaching a jump, you have to get ready the horse to jump, and there's an approach speed, there's when you do the jump, and it's a risky thing, but with this you can get that kind of feedback that you need. There's a little extra. There's UK is obviously big in the equine. They have a research center. They do DNA tests. You can actually design a horse with DNA. There's enough knowledge in the DNA that they can say, if you want a high performance horse, color markings, you can check out recessive genes. And sometimes, you buy a horse at an auction that has no papers, and you can actually find out a lot about your horse, its heritage, and maybe you can even find out its parentage and ancestors. So that's pretty neat. See, there's voice recognition, which is what my wife is in, dressage. Dressage is it's a real boring sport. I'll just tell you that. That's why nobody ever heard. Actually, it's an Olympic sport, but it's hardly ever televised. But it originated as they used to fight wars in Europe on horseback, and you never had to tell your horse where to go. You just moved it with your knees while you're fighting people. So that's how this dressage started. And so there's judges. See, this is a dressage arena here, and there's a judge in this booth here. And then you got to trot and canter and walk and do circles, and it's all a pattern. And then there's a judge has to keep your eyes on the horse, because there's a lot of movement going on, and they talk to a person. It's just called a scribe, and they say, okay, give that step was a 7, and then they will give comments. It's like really good step or really bad step or whatever. And so it's really hard to find people to do that, because it's boring. And but this one company that my wife works at a American Association of Equine Practitioners. They had a big convention last year I went to, and I actually met one company that had voice recognition to, e-scribe, I think they called it. And so it's pretty neat. In fact, my wife was telling me that there's some talk about just getting rid of judges entirely, because you can do it with AI, with all the other vision stuff they have. And there's obviously some limitations. There's accuracy. There's really not a lot of scientific validation, although my wife tells me that they've had a 2-year scientific study that's coming out next month on a lot of this wearable stuff to see if it's actually doing what it says it's doing. There is some privacy concerns, because a lot of these times you're uploading data and they're sharing it to help the models out. And a little story on the AI. When I was at this convention, every vendor there had AI, and I went out and I said, there was a guy that had x-rays, for horses, and I go, what is the AI? What is that all about? And he goes, oh, it's all intelligent. It can detect cracks in the horse's, structure and that. And I'm like, okay, well, what is it? Did you train this AI on what? And then he just kind of gave me a blank stare. I go, well, is there like a model, or what do you, I mean, it looks to me just like you just have machine vision is all this is. And he's like, kind of like, well, our real guy isn't here, so I can't answer that question. So there is a lot of AI everything, and they're selling it out there. So, and that is it. That's Frankie. She wants some tech. She keeps asking for it. So thank you. Hope I didn't bore you with this.